Have you ever had a brand that you're about to work with tell you that they want you to stay exclusive to their brand during your contract? And maybe for this ask, they didn't even offer you more money. Yeah, that's called exclusivity, and if you're not charging for it, you are leaving money on the table. As a creator, you need to know what exclusivity means, as well as how you can charge for it, so that you're not quietly limiting the amount of income that you're making through your brand partnerships. Here's what we're diving into today. What exactly exclusivity means and why brands ask for it, how to figure out what's considered a competitive brand, how exclusivity limits your income potential, and how to calculate what you should be charging for it. And don't worry, I'll share some red flags that you want to look for related to exclusivity in your contracts too. Plus, at the end of this video, I'll tell you exactly what I currently charge for brand partnerships and how exactly I figured out my rates, because we just don't gatekeep here. So what does exclusivity really mean? Exclusivity is when a brand essentially restricts the other brands that you can talk about, post about, and work with even in a more formal capacity while you are working with this current brand. For example, if you're working with a brand like Maybelline, they're probably not going to want you to talk about CoverGirl the next day. Most of the time in a contract that includes exclusivity, you're going to see the brand asking for from when the contract starts to a certain period of time after that they want you to be exclusive. But some brands may actually ask you to also be exclusive to them even before you share the post. So why do brands even ask for exclusivity in the first place? From a brand's perspective, they're really asking you to represent their brand fully. They don't want you talking about their competitors. They want it to feel really, really authentic when you are talking about the brand and show your loyalty to them specifically. I know this sounds kind of harsh, but truthfully, it's actually a really fair ask as long as you're being paid and being paid fairly. Now, many times what we see as creators is we're looking through a contract. As we're about to sign it, we realize that exclusivity was thrown in there without the brand even mentioning it to us. So very often it slips through the cracks, we don't charge for it, and essentially we're leaving money on the table. This is why it's so important to make sure you're always reading your contracts and you understand what the heck they're even saying. The problem with exclusivity for us as creators is that often when we're not charging for it and just letting it slip through in contracts, we're actually limiting the amount of income that we could be making with other brands. For example, if you're someone who uses Maybelline, maybe you also like CoverGirl, but because you're unable to work with them, if CoverGirl ever came to you and wanted to partner, you would have to say no to that partnership because you're exclusive to Maybelline. This is essentially charging for a lost opportunity. So they're kind of paying insurance on making sure that you are going to be working with only them, but because you may be missing out on money, it's important for you to charge for that to compensate. So how can you understand what is actually a competitive brand for a brand that you might be exclusive to? The best rule of thumb here is literally just ask. A brand might not consider every other brand in their category to be a competitor, so it's really important that you literally ask for a list so that you can know exactly who they want you to stay exclusive and away from. For example, Olay might sell skincare, and CeraVe, because it's also a drugstore brand, might be a direct competitor. However, maybe Olay and Sephora, even though they both sell skincare products, wouldn't be considered competitors because one is a drugstore product at a certain price point and Sephora is at a very different price point. It's a totally different company. You can simply ask, can you clarify what you consider a competitor? Most of the time they'll just give you a list and then you go, great, awesome, now I know. How can exclusivity actually impact your income? Well, like I mentioned earlier, if you are in a contract with a brand for say 3 months, you have 3 months where you're not working with any of their competitors. If you're a creator who posts a ton about that certain niche or brand category, you're likely going to be missing out on a ton of money. So this opportunity cost is essentially what you're charging the brand for when you're charging them for exclusivity. The longer the exclusivity, the more this should cost the brand. And we're gonna break down exactly what that rate should look like. So let's just say, for round numbers, you're a creator who charges $1,000 for a video and the brand is hiring you to create one video. And then maybe they want you to stay exclusive to them for 3 months. Here's where it gets difficult. With other formulas, like with usage rights or with whitelisting, we have a set percentage that usually doesn't change creator to creator or brand to brand. Now, with exclusivity, this percentage can range hugely. And let me give you an example of 2 different ends of the spectrum. If I were a fashion creator who worked with brands similar to like Old Navy, American Eagle, Abercrombie, and Old Navy wanted to work with me and wanted me to stay exclusive to them in their brand category for 3 months. Now, if American Eagle reaches out to me, if Torrid reaches out to me, any of these other mall brands that maybe they'd consider competitors, I have to say no, and I'm likely leaving a ton of money on the table. This is something where I would be charging on the higher end of the percentage, maybe even 100% of my base rate per 30-day period. You can charge pretty heavily if you know for sure you're going to be missing out on other opportunities if you take this exclusivity deal. On the other end of things, maybe you're working with a brand that sells retainers. You usually only need 1 retainer and you're probably going to pick one brand and work with them and not really be interested in their competitors. So this is a really easy brand for you to stay exclusive to. I would be charging more on the lower end of say 10, 15, maybe 20% of my base rate. So you can see how this is going to look a little different depending on what type of creator I am, what type of brands I'm going to have to stay exclusive to, and essentially how difficult it's going to be for me to do that. Let's just say, for round numbers, it is a brand where we want to charge about 20% exclusivity per month. So if we had that $1,000 base rate, that's what we're charging for the video, we would take 20% of that, which would be $200. If the brand wanted us to stay exclusive for 3 months, we would multiply 200 by 3, getting us $600. That $600 for the exclusivity gets added on to our $1,000 base rate, and we are now charging $1,600. The thing you really need to focus on here is the harder it is to stay exclusive to that brand, the higher the rate per month should be. What are the things that you need to make sure are in your agreement when you're talking about exclusivity? First things first, the exact duration of how long they want you to stay exclusive. That's gotta be in writing in your contract. Second would be the category covered or even the specific brands covered that they want you to stay away from. Here is an example of a script that you can use when you're negotiating back and forth with a brand, trying to get them to understand why you're charging for exclusivity and how much you're charging for it as well. If you're feeling overwhelmed or excited by any of this, just know that you have the support that you need along the way and you don't have to do this alone. I want to tell you about Social Suite, which is my private creator community where we have 150 plus other creators as well as myself and other experts who are literally there for you to help you figure out what to charge, negotiate contracts, and navigate all of the confusing, frustrating things we go through as creators anytime you need the help. In Social Suite, you'll learn how to land better brand partnerships, figure out how to actually charge, and if you're interested, even make this your full-time job. As promised, I want to tell you exactly what I charge for brand partnerships. I know maybe you're already using these pricing calculators that we find on Google, and let's just be honest, most of the time the rates are insulting and only really based on your follower count, and we know we're much more valuable than the amount of followers that we have. So I created a method called the fair pricing method where we essentially help you figure out what you should be charging based on things like your follower count, your audience targeting, your engagement rate, and even the reach of your content. Using the fair pricing method, I charge about $2,000 for an Instagram reel and I have less than 30,000 followers. Same on TikTok, less than 30,000 followers, and I charge about $1,000 for a TikTok video there. I'm consistently paid these prices with no pushback, and that's all thanks to the fair pricing method. You can get the free worksheet so you can figure out exactly what you should be charging right down in the description. If you're looking to become a full-time creator or land better brand partnerships at higher deal prices, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next week with another video.